Hello, fellow seekers. Here is the question. When a human experiences color, the brain is actually inventing the subjective experience of color based on the wavelengths of light in the environment. In actuality, the color red does not exist outside of a brain. Given the manufactured nature of our subjective experiences of the physical universe, what would the subjective experience of a new color be for a human, especially if that new color is in no way similar to existing colors? Let's discuss. The idea of a new color that is in no way similar to existing colors would indeed be a fascinating experience for a human, given the way our brains manufacture color perceptions. Our experience of color is deeply tied to the structure of our sensory and neural systems. Each color we perceive, red, green, blue, and so on, is the brain's interpretive response to specific wavelengths of light detected by our cone cells, which respond to short, S, medium, M, and long L wavelengths. If a truly new color experience were possible, it would likely require a fundamental change in our perceptual or neural mechanisms, such as by creating an additional perceptual dimension or by altering the way our brains process and integrate sensory inputs. Here's how such an experience might manifest. 1. A new dimension of color perception. For a new color to be entirely different from existing colors, it would need to be more than a novel combination of red, green, and blue RGB signals, which is how we experience mixed colors like purple or brown. Our color perception is fundamentally three-dimensional, with each dimension representing the activation of one type of cone cell. This three-dimensional system creates a color space that spans all perceivable colors for humans. To experience a new color unrelated to any known hue, our brain would need an additional dimension in its color processing, analogous to seeing in 4 primary colors instead of 3. This would introduce a color that's not a combination of red, green, or blue wavelengths, but something qualitatively new. In essence, this new dimension would create an entirely unique color that does not map onto our current understanding of hue, saturation, or brightness. 2. The challenge of conceptualizing a new color. Conceptually, it's almost impossible to imagine a color outside the red, green, blue paradigm because our brains lack the neural circuitry to represent it. Any attempt to imagine a new color tends to blend existing colors or manipulate familiar qualities like brightness, contrast, or saturation. A new color experience would bypass these familiar categories and create an experience for which we have no existing cognitive or linguistic reference. For a human to actually perceive this new color, it might feel as if an entirely alien quality had been added to the visual field. It wouldn't merely be a variation or a blend, it would be something our brains had never encountered. This would likely be disorienting, as the brain would have no immediate framework to interpret this new information. 3. Potential mechanisms for experiencing new colors, additional cone types, or genetic modifications. If humans developed additional cone types, for example, from genetic modification, this could theoretically allow perception of wavelengths outside the current visible spectrum, such as ultraviolet. However, while this might extend our color vision, it wouldn't necessarily create a new color in the purest sense. It would still be grounded in RGB extensions, creating colors that might appear more intense or nuanced, but not fundamentally different. Brain modifications to enable new perceptual channels. A more radical approach would be direct brain modifications that bypass the existing cone-dependent color processing, creating a 4th or even 5th dimension of color perception at the cortical level. This would allow for an entirely different class of color experiences not derived from RGB, similar to how a person with synesthesia might see sounds or feel colors. Artificial neural stimulation. Another speculative approach might involve stimulating specific neurons or regions in the visual cortex to invent new color perceptions that don't correspond to any physical wavelength. This would entail activating new neural patterns that could generate experiences disconnected from typical sensory input. Such an experience might indeed feel like seeing a color outside of the RGB spectrum, one that is neither brighter nor dimmer, nor a mix of known colors, but qualitatively new. 4. The subjective experience of a new color. Assuming such a new color perception were possible, the subjective experience could be profoundly unfamiliar, likely evoking reactions that go beyond visual sensation alone. This new color might bring about unique cognitive or emotional responses as our brain tries to categorize something that defies its previous framework. The experience could feel transcendent or even unsettling as the brain attempts to incorporate an unfamiliar quality into its sensory landscape. 5. Implications of perceiving a new color. Cognitive and emotional reactions. Since the brain often ties color to emotional states such as calming blues or energizing reds, a new color might trigger novel emotional responses that don't fit traditional categories. It could evoke a sensation of awe or ambiguity as the mind struggles to place it within an emotional or sensory context. Extended consciousness. A new color experience could expand consciousness by forcing the brain to adapt to a radically novel form of perception. This would be akin to adding an entirely new sense, with the brain potentially creating new neural networks and associations to make sense of this expanded sensory input. In summary, for a human to perceive a truly new color, it would likely require new neural structures or additional perceptual dimensions. The experience would be unlike any blend or shade we currently understand, representing an alien perceptual quality. It would not just be visually unique, but could fundamentally alter cognition, potentially expanding consciousness in a way that challenges the brain's existing framework for interpreting reality. Thank you for exploring this topic with me.